Harley Reid has raised the bat, and I am not talking cricket. West Coast wonderkind has all the talent in the world, but it's time he pulled his head in. He's conceded 52 free kicks this season, and there are still 5 rounds to be played. The Eagles' number 9 is lucky. A fine for tripping could and should have been a suspension. His more experienced teammate Jack Graham copped a 4-week ban after self-reporting a homophobic slur to a GWS player in round 17. But why did it take till the Friday to contact the AFL, and was the punishment enough given this continues to happen? And now for Purple Power. Fremantle's stirring win over Hawthorn has it back in the top 8, soaring with belief after a come-from-behind triumph in a game with finals-type pressure. The Dockers are 5 from 7 against top 9 teams this season, the best record in the AFL, and have saluted in 7 from their past 8 matches. But now for the big test, Collingwood at the G. Welcome to the West Sports Show. We are brought to you by TabTouch. Got the touch? Download the TabTouch app today. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelp.online.org.au. Tuesdays, and I am joined as usual by Craig O'Donoghue. How are you, Cod?
I'm marvellous, Quarters. How are you today?
I'm very well. 2 very interesting games from our local teams at the weekend. A fantastic win to Freo, and we will be all over that shortly. But we're going to open with West Coast, who I thought put up a really good effort against Port Adelaide, certainly in the first half, changed their game plan a bit. But the narrative around this game was over 2 players, one who didn't play, Jack Graham, and the other, Harley Reid. Now, last week, Cod, we spoke of Harley being in the naughty corner. Well, he's still in the naughty corner. In fact, he's risen to new heights. He has 52 free kicks against now, and I think you've got a special tribute to him here.
I'm holding my bat up to the crowd because Harley Reid has now reached his half century. He's done what most of the players in the West Indies couldn't do. He's managed to hit 50, and it's quite remarkable when you think about the fact that, so there goes the bat on the ground, 52 free kicks. Rowan Marshall's next on 44, Matt Rowell on 43, and then it's all ruckman again. It's Grundy on 37, Nane Curvis 34, Tristan Cherry on 32.
So ruck infringements.
Ruck infringements happen all the time because they're in 100 contests a game, and it's constantly just holding each other or accidental free kicks. 52, it's a massive number. He's going to set the record for the most by a midfielder that we've seen since the stats came in around 99, and that's 61. It's wild that he just keeps on giving away free kicks. And then he goes, oh, what did I do? Well, he's giving away free kicks. He's just holding blokes and pushing blokes and doing silly things. He's got to pull his head in.
It's education. This is what they're saying. It's all about education. The fact is, opponents now just know how to roll him. It's a bit like James Sicily in the early days, and they still get to him, but you just know which buttons to push with him, and it was evident at the weekend. And by the way, I thought it was a good game from Harley Reid when he goes and finds the footy. But when he goes and finds the fights, he expends way too much energy. Jason Horne-Francis, if we can lip read, whatever you can make of that. But Jason Horne-Francis played through that second half with a broken foot and had the last laugh on Harley because he punched him up at stoppages. Forget about the who wins the verbals or who wins the push and shove. It's who wins the game of footy. And Jason Horne-Francis left him for dead in that one of those final stoppages where he's kicked the goal. And that's how you win games of footy. Look, it's all well and good to fly. If that's how you play on the edge. But they've got to the point now, it's not just about education. You've got to tell him to pull his head in.
And that's coaching. It's not about educating someone. It's about coaching someone and saying, no, this is unacceptable. And they had the chance earlier on in the year when he gave away 7 against Brisbane. And I reckon they did because he pulled back and he had a couple of weeks in a row where he didn't give away free kicks. But now these numbers that he's giving them away, he's clearly not in the right head space. And when you're doing that throw over the head as well, and the report on Travis Boak for tripping where he just threw the leg out and
well, let's get on to that in a minute.
There's a lot of things that he's doing, and that wasn't a free kick either. That's
ridiculous.
That wasn't a free kick because a free kick had been paid 1 second earlier, so that it didn't count. So you can add that one to the list if you want to. But I went and had a look at after he had 26 free kicks at all of the free kicks that he'd given away, and it was 20 were correct, 4 of them were unwarranted, and 2 there was a lack of vision. But one of those was behind the player by about 50 metres, so he clearly whacked someone. So it's not like he's being unlucky. He's just giving away free kicks, and not all of them are oh, the player's got in your face and you did something stupid. He's just going late with things. He's just pushing people in the back in marking contests. He's not going after the ball enough. And it must be something that the club have to fix with him now, because Elliot Yeo was trying to help him with it last year. Yeo's not playing, and who's helping him now? Who's saying, pull your head in, stop it, go after the footy?
Why do you need help? I mean, okay, you can have coaches educating, but out in the field, surely the penny has to drop.
We need to have a leader that's doing something.
Yeah, but surely he's not he's got some intelligence, Harley.
Yeah.
Surely you look at it, and that's 7 turnovers I've caused.
You can get to the point where, in any sport, your mind just ticks over and you get angry and frustrated and you do stupid things. But the numbers are building up too much, which is the problem. And it's the silliness of each free
hurting
kick,
his team.
which is where I think off the field, the coach needs to say, pull your head in. And then on the field after the first one, a player needs to go, oi, no more for the rest of the day. And if they had the coach saying it off the field and the player saying it on the field after the first one happens, or when they see red mist or whatever, it'll help him to pull it back. But he's got to take responsibility himself now and go, this is unacceptable. I'm costing my team.
Well, he's played every game, Harley, and he's very lucky that he's going to be available for selection for this week's game against Richmond at Optus Stadium, because in my view, that is a suspension, that trip. The MRO, the AFL brought in a new rule at the start of the season, which was intent to cause injury. If that action, putting his leg out to Travis Boak, who has a history of leg injuries, if that is not intent to cause injury, then I don't know what is. That is a week every day.
Yeah, it wasn't the instinctive, oh, you've wrong-footed me, the leg goes out.
No, it was intentional. He stuck the leg
out there.
out
He knew what he was doing. Yeah,
hung it out there.
And it's the arms that show that. Like when you see trips where they're wrong-footed, the arms will go out and the legs will go out and they're just off balance. The arms were perfectly balanced. He made a decision this time, and I thought that was really poor by him.
Just remember, was there much retribution for that trip?
No, because the free kick had been paid for pushing the back.
And you get on with it.
People are watching the push in the back because that's where the ball is, rather than watching Harley. So I don't reckon anyone even saw it at the time. Like no one commented about it on the TV or with us watching the game. It was just sort of disappeared because we're watching the initial one. Yeah. The concern is like the number of free kicks, a number of reports that he's had where he's been fined. When does that add up to become a suspension? It used to be that way, but now, we talked about it last week that instigating a melee in round 3, striking in round 8, striking in round 14, engaging in rough conduct round 17, tripping in round 18. You
did the sums last week, so now it's what, 26,750?
It was 6,250 on the weekend, which takes up to more than 70 grand that he's cost himself overall over 2 years.
If you incorporate the awards like Rising Star and et cetera.
With Rising Star awards and his match payments and things like that. But it's 26 grand
in fines.
He's actually paid in fines. He gets paid today. So AFL players get paid on the 15th of the month every single month.
Happy days.
So that'll be his match payments. That'll be his base rate as well. Now, the last game of the last cycle was actually on the 15th of the month. I'm going to assume that the June 15 game is part of the July payment. So he's had 4 games during that time, and his base wage would take it up to $19,691 take home after tax. And he's got to now pay 12 grand. On top of that, so he's lost 12 of his nearly 20. So, I mean, he's still earning more money in this month than what most people in society are, even after taking out those fines. But you've got to stop giving money away. He's clearly earning a lot with all of his endorsements and stuff, but at some point you got to go, you know what, I could go buy another car if I wanted to.
I'm going to call you the treasurer from now on. Jack Graham. So 4 weeks for a homophobic slur, self-reported, gets a discount. I think we all agree that's about right, the 4 weeks. The problem I have with it, and I do have a problem with it. For a start, I have a problem with the action, what he's done. I mean, really, you're an experienced player. You haven't read this landscape the last few years. The problem I have with it is the inconsistency. If you look at penalties handed out to Lance Collard 6 weeks, Jeremy Finlayson 3 weeks, Jack Graham gets 4, okay?
And Will Powell got 5.
Will Powell got 5 weeks. So he gets a discount for self-reporting. And I understand, okay, so you've self-reported, you've rung the AFL CEO, the club did the right thing with GWS. But what about the players who don't get the opportunity to self-report? Where's the fairness there? I mean, I'm not trying to say you deserve a break if you've used a homophobic slur, but just inconsistent across the board.
Yeah, because he would have gone into the change rooms after the game, assuming that the umpire heard it or that the GWS player would report it himself. So that's the self-reporting. Then West Coast have gone and told the AFL. I understand that by coming forward, you're saying, well, I'm punishing myself because if I hadn't, you wouldn't have found out. But he didn't know that they wouldn't have found out. So once the penalty's out there, or once the knowledge is out there, you've got to cop the same sort of penalty as everybody else. So I agree with you. I don't like the fact that it's a different penalty for different people at different stages. When it was rising and now it's dropped back, how can 5 and 6 suddenly become 4? We can understand how 3 becomes 4 because you should know by now. But how does 5 to 6 then drop back to 4? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
I think Jack Graham's overall a pretty good citizen, okay? He's had a good career, been no really egregious circumstances around him. But do you think that there's been enough contrition from the Eagles or from Jack Graham on this action?
Not at all. In fact, let's listen to Andrew McQualter. This is in his post-game press conference. He was about 2 minutes in. He'd answered 5 or 6 questions about it at the time, around process and stuff. But he clearly wasn't happy about having to keep being asked for information or responses to what Jack Graham had done.
Look, we can sit here all day and talk about this, but as I mentioned, Jack's a very good person. He used one word that was a mistake, and he's copping a serious punishment for that word, and he understands that that's right.
So a couple of things here. He didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. You make a choice to say racial, sexual, these sorts of comments. You make a choice to let that word come out of your mouth because you wouldn't say those sorts of things to someone in your office. You wouldn't say it to your mates. You wouldn't say it to someone walking down the street. He's made a choice. He didn't say one word. He said a word that no one should say. Damien Moncourse back in 1995 said one word to Michael Long and it changed the AFL landscape forever from a racial perspective. One word can really, really matter. And I'll give you a couple of one words: suicide, fear, hate. You can throw in self-harm. Like, for the gay community, people are genuinely fearful for their lives or for their friends' lives when they are going through this. And I'll tell a story of, which I've mentioned in my basketball podcast before, when this sort of issue was going through there, that when I was coaching umpires, I had an umpire come to me and say he was having trouble at home because a parent disapproved of his way of life. And I didn't know what he was talking about. I was the only person down there who didn't know he was gay. Everyone else, when they went out on the weekends, they all knew his partner, all that sort of stuff. And he assumed I knew. I had no idea. And he told me this story and he asked for some advice. I said, I don't know. And I said, I have no idea. So I can't give you advice now. Give me a week. I'm going to go to some of my gay friends and ask them what I should say to you here. And I flicked out some messages to some mates, and one of them sent back, give me his phone number. I want to speak to him. I don't want him to end up as a statistic. As in, I don't want him dead. And that shocked me. Like, I was thinking, I need to help you out at home a little bit. His first thought was, this guy might kill himself. And that's where this can lead to for people. So, yes, it's on the footy field, and what happens on the field stays on the field. That's all old school. Those days are done. There's things you can't say. You can be what Harley was and being a smart aleck and saying, go home to mummy and all that sort of stuff. Or you're not hard enough at the footy, you were soft. You can't be going down that road, ever, because it's just so dangerous for people's lives, and we don't understand it because we're straight and white and male, and we live a pretty good life. Like, we're pretty privileged in how we are. But for these people out there whose lives we will never understand, and it is scary when you hear the stories around it. So it's not a mistake. It's not one word. It is a choice of an unacceptable piece of language that can be damaging to as many people of society. And until people get their heads around that, we are going to continue to have a problem.
So as I said, I'm okay with 4 weeks. The AFL has set precedents in the past where if you continue to err, we're going to incrementally increase the punishment here. Do you think it's time, let's just say next time, if it wasn't this time, and it will happen again, someone will be stupid enough to do it again, should they just go, just 8 weeks? Just make a statement.
Yeah.
Because then they're smart in terms of they will stop if they realise, 8 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it does happen, the player needs to be required to speak and genuinely apologise.
Well,
not a press release where you're not saying.
No, why haven't they been made to speak now?
Yeah, exactly. He should have been made to speak. And it's interesting, West Coast won't put a player up to speak until Friday this week so they can say, we're focusing on the game. Andrew McQualter has been very supportive of Jack Graham, but not in any way strong on the actual comment itself. The club has been, he's a good person, he's made a mistake. No, how about saying, as I said, this is unacceptable, we're not going to tolerate this sort of stuff. And the AFL need to be really hard the entire time when these sorts of things happen, because it's all well and good to suspend a guy who made a smart aleck text to the MCG saying, I want to report the disappearance of Carlton players and the murder of Michael Voss when Carlton were getting smashed. And they suspended him for 5 years.
Stupid comment. That was overs.
Yeah.
It was overs.
It was. But so they go overs on the fans.
Because it was a bit.
But they go unders when this sort of thing happens. So you got to be more consistent with what you're doing in terms of punishments.
Yeah, and just briefly, look, our thoughts go out to Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira and Jace Burgoyne for these racist comments that continue to be uttered by fans. When the AFL does find them, they do slap big bans on them, which is a good thing.
Exactly what should happen.
So just stop doing it, please, you idiots out there. Let's just, before we move on to Fremantle and the might that is the Purple Army at the moment, the Purple Force, let's talk about West Coast. Just a bit of a flip of a game style at the weekend. We've seen a bit of chaos. We've seen that quick ball movement into the forward 50, and it's all about repeat forward entries and keeping the ball in that forward 50. There's a lot of control at the weekend, particularly first quarter. It was a kick mark game, which we've not seen from them. So I liked it. I think if you rust it onto one game plan, you're very predictable. I understand what he's trying to do, and it is a game plan that's been very successful in recent times, but I liked it. They ran out of legs. The relatively young midfield, well, it is a young midfield, Brady Hoff, Elijah Hewitt, Harley Reid, but I did like what I saw for a half. They weren't able to sustain it, but I thought it was a tick for the West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, so you have to have the ability to change game plans at different points, go from plan A to plan B, and change it depending on the ground. They've been horrible at Adelaide Oval for years. So that gave them the chance to get into the game. Then it worked. It might have been a tactic specific for Port Adelaide because they then got in front by a fair bit before the power jagged them back. So, you've got to be able to go in and say, this is how we're going to win this week. And it's going to be a little bit different. They're going to be expecting this, so we're going to do this instead, and let's train it and practice it and go out there and execute it. So they showed good signs.
They did, and I thought the Eagles' backline was pretty good too. Harry Edwards in particular, who's copped a bit of flack over the journey, and particularly earlier this year, but I think he's turned it around. It's a good game from Harry. Generally played on Ollie Lord. Mitch Georgiades v. Reuben Ginbey. That was an interesting duel. Probably a bit lucky, I think, that he's kicked, 3-5.
It was off target.
It was off target, and also spilled a couple he'd normally take. One bounced off the chest in the third quarter, one went through the fingers, but the conditions were a bit slippery. But I felt like there's a bit of a bag in him at the weekend. And look, it was a good matchup. Reuben's been... he's had a really good year. I think he's easily top 5, their best and fairest, if not top 3. Reuben Ginbey this year. Yeah, that was really interesting down back. So I think West Coast, a tick for the performance overall, even though you didn't get the chocolates. A tick for some of Harley's work. He's certainly most...
Well, his game was great. His free kicks and discipline are poor. Yeah.
Last quarter wasn't so good.
The Harry Edwards stuff I find really interesting. That I reckon is a good lesson for everyone out there, that if you feel secure in your position, it's much easier to play sport. He's not looking over his shoulder anymore because McGovern's not there, and Barris is obviously over at Hawthorn, and he's thinking, well, I'm playing pretty much no matter what. So I don't have to worry about one mistake here or there, and suddenly he's got the ability to play with full confidence, and if he makes a mistake, he moves on. Whereas in the past, he'd be thinking, I'm dropped. And there's a real strong lesson there in how players need to be supported when they do make mistakes when they're young, or when they're a backman especially, that just keep on telling them you're okay, and then don't drop them for a while. Make them feel secure in their position.
It's impossible to get any continuity in your game when you're in one week and out the next thing. He's a really good young man, Harry Edwards, and he's a super athlete. It's funny when you and I sit up in the commentary box. I find this every week, particularly with someone like Harry. You're sitting up there and they all look, they're good athletes and everything. It's not till you get down the rooms you think, geez, you're big.
Alex Pearce. Stand next to Alex Pearce at Fremantle. My
he's a
God,
monster, yeah.
He is a specimen. His arms and his legs, he's just long. And it's extraordinary how big he is and how well he moves.
Bumped into Alex after the game, actually. Obviously, he wasn't playing with that hot spot in the leg, and I said, just give him a pat in the back and said, well done, good win. And he looked at me and just went, whoa, wiped the sweat off the
Which
brow.
is a good way to get into
So
Freo.
let's talk about Freo. As a proud major sponsor of the Fremantle Football Club, Woodside has accepted the challenge of supporting local footy at all levels, from grassroots to greatness, so it can thrive throughout WA. Woodside, Australia's leading energy company. Great win, Cod. It was a cracking game of football. Freo, my boys, it felt like a final.
It did feel like a final, didn't
was
it?
so intense in that game, and I thought both teams stood up to it really well for 3 quarters. Freo was far better in that final quarter, 4 goals to none. I think the 4 were all caused from turnover too. It was just a great effort by Freo. They've now won 8 from 9, and really importantly, they've got the best record against top 9 teams in the competition. So they're all really good signs. They do have a tough draw ahead.
They got the Pies this week.
Yeah.
They've still got Carlton, West Coast, and Port Adelaide to come, so they should win those. They've also got Brisbane, got the Bulldogs in the last round. So they do have some challenges to come, but at the moment, I can't see them not beating West Coast, Carlton, or Port Adelaide. So that puts them in a position where they get to 14 wins. Imagine, and they can still miss the finals on 14 wins, which is insane.
Well, their percentage. So this is where it comes down. So 14 should do it, but 15, I think, with their percentage, you know it's going to come down to that last game against the Western Bulldogs.
Yeah.
And it also could come down, it could be Freo Hawthorn vying for that 8th spot. Hawthorn's got Brisbane at the Gabba in the final round. So
it's going to get challenging. But what I loved about Fremantle on the weekend was that they're 13 points down at 3/4 time. They've had a massive week. All the focus has been on them.
Yep.
Can they stand up? Are they pretenders or are they contenders? They know that they could feel the tension in the crowd. There was this unease in the crowd. It was like, oh, we're worried, we're nervous. What's going on here? And they just went bang and took absolute control of that game. Andrew Brayshaw was superb. Caleb Sarong had heaps of the footy all night. They tackled to hurt. Some of Heath Chapman's tackles were unbelievable. Luke Ryan was the way he was throwing himself in. They gang tackled. Andrew Brayshaw having the cut in his head in the interview after the game with a bloodstained jumper.
I was okay with that.
Oh, it was great.
There's been some noise about that. What nonsense.
That will go down. That photo will go down in history as if Fremantle have a successful season from here. That photo will sum up. You just keep going hard at the footy. You keep going hard at the footy.
By the
Andrew
way,
Brayshaw, it sums up his career.
We should point out, it was a little bit after the siren, so he's been checked out by medical staff. He's fine. Those cuts, and they're superficial, like he would have been checked for concussion.
Yeah, and they bleed forever.
Yeah, they just bleed forever.
Yeah.
I've bled for ages with a cut in the eye. So it's just, let's just not get carried away. It was a great performance by him, Sarong. The leaders stood up, and Switkowski was fantastic. I thought their forwards were great. When it was required, Josh Tracy took some really important contested marks. And they were massively down on ground ball gets, and they flipped it in the last quarter, 2+ they were. I think they were minus 22 at 3/4 time, and they won by 2 in the last quarter. So that's the sign of a good team that can flip the narrative. And I think Hawthorn really had no answers. They forced Hawthorn to kick long ball to the wrong position. So well coached, well played, big tick for Freo. But as we know in this competition, Cod, you don't get long to rest, and they have a massive game on Sunday. Their biggest game in several years, really, when they take on Collingwood at the G.
Yep, and Justin Longmuir knows exactly how big this game is.
Biggest challenge in footy. You go not only to take on Collingwood, who are the best team in the comp, but you go and take on the Magpie Army and the crowd, and it's a great challenge for us.
So let's have a look at how big the challenge is. Collingwood have won 18 of their last 20 matches against non-Victorian clubs at the MCG. 18 out of 20. In terms of just the clubs themselves, Collingwood 110,000 members, Fremantle have 62,000. Attendance this year, Collingwood have played in front of 996,000, Fremantle 573. Over the last 5 years, the Pies have had 69 games at the MCG, Fremantle have had 10. Past 5 years, 8 finals for Collingwood, 2 for the Dockers. And then you look at the other advantages that Collingwood have. Their academy, Isaac Quaynor, first-round pick. Fremantle, none of their academy guys are in the team at the moment, and Brandon Walker was in the 50s, and Josh Draper was on the rookie list. Then you got father-son. No father-son free kicks for Fremantle.
Oh, jeez, Collingwood.
Darcy Moore, the 2 Dacos boys, so important to that team. Back in 2010 when they won the flag, it was Travis Cloke and Heath Shaw. Fremantle yet to have a genuine father-son
Who's winning the
selection.
father-son premiership, Collingwood or Geelong?
Geelong.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Ooh,
But the point here is this is not just a team sitting on top of the ladder being Collingwood. This is the might of an absolute powerhouse club, and you go over to their home ground with more than 60,000 people there. This will be the largest home and away crowd that Fremantle have ever played in front of. Their largest home and away crowd is 61,000, which was against Collingwood last time they went there. This year, Collingwood have played in front of 63 and 67,000 fans at home against Adelaide and Port Adelaide, so they'll top 61,000. And Justin Lomua's job isn't just to find a game plan with X's and O's to win this match. It's to get his players mentally prepared to take on almost an entire state.
So you start, it's a 4-goal advantage. I always say. I thought it was 4 goals Richmond, 4 goals Collingwood at the G.
Yeah, that's Collingwood at the G.
I'm talking crowd.
Yeah, that Collingwood, like that chant builds and builds, and the army of them all coming together, and they know that they matter, and they know that they can be intimidating. Even the black and white, that just those colours can be intimidating as well, and there won't be many Fremantle fans there. So Justin Lomua's job is to get the theme of the week right. You know, whether you tag Dacos or who plays on Pendlebury or how you handle Josh Dacos, all that stuff's fine, but get the players mentally prepared to go in and be in a battle where you're going to be screamed at the entire time. You're going to feel like everyone's on top of you. You're not going to be comfortable. You're going to be a bit agitated, a bit nervous. You haven't won in Melbourne for more than a year. You've been belted several times in Melbourne or given up leads in Victoria when you should have. So this is a challenge for Justin Lomia from a coaching perspective, which is different to what he normally is. He's normally very thorough and process-oriented. This one's going to be one on emotion.
Working in their favour, Collingwood working against them, Collingwood get an extra day, okay, because they've played on the Friday night. Working in their favour, they did play at the Gold Coast. It is very sapping to play on the Gold Coast. It was a game where Collingwood lost, but they had to reel Gold Coast in, and they did it very well. But I don't discount that. And I also look at the last time they played. There was a pretty competitive loss to Freo here. It wasn't that long ago, by the way. They did play Corey Wagner on Nick Dacos. I think he was kept him relatively
Did a good
quiet.
job. Yeah.
So you'd expect them to repeat that this week?
Yep, absolutely. Got to tag
So
Nick
there's a
Dacos.
couple of things they know. They know Collingwood's coming off the Gold Coast. But they'll also back their own form because they've proven against top 9 teams that they can get the job done. And I think the Hawthorn game will really, really important to their psyche, knowing that they can fight their way back from a 3/4 time deficit when the numbers aren't going in their favour and they can still get it done.
Yeah, and they're so sound defensively at the moment. So they've only given up 70 points once in the last 8 games, and that was against Sydney. So their ability to hold teams to scores is just so important. They've got a lot of things they've got to focus on in terms of stopping Collingwood's run, their ability to move the ball so well, and they're elite players, and they'll get back some guys who have been rested in recent weeks. But this is almost a free kick for them in a way because no one's going to expect them to beat Collingwood because the Pies have barely lost all year, and no one expects Collingwood to lose 2 games in a row. So they can go in and try some things, but I think it's just so important that they go out and build their own belief here that the MCG and Victoria specifically, as I said, they've lost to Geelong by 78 points. They've lost to a winless Melbourne. They lost to St Kilda by 61. Then last year, they lost to Essendon after being 25 points up in the last quarter. And they lost to the Bulldogs by 67 points. So their last win in Victoria was May 18 last year. So they've got to head over there and feel comfortable about playing there in case that Bulldogs game in the last round of the season is for finals, or in case they're in finals and having to win an elimination final over there. Got to play well this weekend because of that.
Couple of other games at the weekend. Interesting 2 teams I rate, although I'm a little bit off the Dogs now. Just one of the issues with them is they're really good offensively. We know that. No one scores more. I mean, a ridiculously good offensive game. But going back the other way, they can get caught short. And Adelaide proved it really well. Really impressive win by Adelaide at the weekend. And look out for them. The one I'm really interested in, though, is GWS. Another win against Geelong. But the way they got it done and all their key players are hitting the straps at the right time, and they've still got some guns to come in. Sam Taylor, Jesse Hogan. Cadman's in good form. We're now starting to see the potential people have been talking about for years Finn Callahan, what a player he is. So I picked them to win the flag pre-season, and I sort of jumped off them a bit, but I've jumped back on because this team, I reckon right now, is the team you don't want to be playing in September.
Only a couple of weeks ago, I had them missing out. But it flips all the time. If you get one win against a team that no one expects you to win, that's the difference between playing finals and not. And that's why the Dogs are out now, because they lost to Adelaide and suddenly you drop out of the 8. So it's really challenging for everyone. But yeah, when GWS get their full complement of players, they are so hard to beat and they can get on a real roll, and they're fantastic.
Now, sorry, mate, I've got to mention it, but one of the worst games of footy I've ever watched happened at the weekend. It was your boys against Richmond. The Tigers got up 6-10-46 to 4-13-37. So that's 10 goals, 23 kicked in the game. It was a shocker.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I find you talk about Collingwood, Collingwood play a lot of night footy at the MCG, but they never tend to play night footy at the MCG in the middle of winter on June or July. Essendon tend to always get those games in June and July when the conditions are so poor. So the Pies got the day game this week against Freo. Funny that. And where are the Bombers? Okay, we're at Marvel this week against GWS on Thursday. But regardless, footy at the MCG in winter at night is horrible. It's just horrible, and especially when you're putting Essendon, who have got basically a VFL team out there at the moment.
That's my next point. This is now not just let's just limp to the end of 2025 and
it's affecting 2026.
Your 2026 is, I say you're a Bombers man.
Yeah.
It's compromised, and my heart goes out to Nick Martin, as it does to any player who does an ACL. But that's a terrible injury to a very fine young man who's playing some really good footy. Not what they wanted at that point. There've been a lot of soft tissue injuries at that club, so that's something they're looking at. But the ACLs, the footy collision injuries, you can't help. And you've had a lot of those too.
Yeah, and that's why you get to this point of the year and you see clubs saying, you know what, take that good player, get him having the surgery now, have a start to next year's preseason where he's totally healthy, and don't risk losing him in the last week of August, which is going to impact on 2026. And that's what's happening to the Bombers now.
Are you getting to
2026 is done already.
Are you getting to the stage where it's going to be, this is West Coast-esque, in that, are you going to be able to field a team?
They'll field a team I think.
Might have to draw on.
They might not have to. It might be a case of you don't have to play well to stay in the team, and that's the problem. But the concern for the Bombers is they'll stay down next year because all of a sudden you just don't have another decent team to pick. The advantage is this is how you actually build. Like if you're a better team than what your ladder position says because you don't have the players at the right time, then it can help you over the long term. So, but you don't want, as a fan, you don't want more years of heartache.
You're going to find out stuff about players you didn't know.
Yeah, and that's the only positive for the rest of the year and for probably next year as well.
Oh, hang in there, Bombers fans. It will turn at some point. I'm not sure when, but it will turn at some point. Cod Thirsty Camel mailbag time. This week's special, Asahi Super Dry Stubbies. Camel Club member price is $56.99 a carton. Join up in store or online today. This week we'll be giving away a $50 digital voucher thanks to Thirsty Camel, as we always do. Get your questions into TheWestSport at wanews.com.au. Please include your mobile number at the bottom of your email, as we'll send you a digital voucher if you are a weekly winner. This one from Scott from Dianella. Hi, guys. After watching Sunday's game, I feel that it is now time for the Eagles to ask for a commitment from Harley Reid. He's an enormous talent, but I don't think that they can afford to tolerate his lack of maturity for much longer unless he's all in. Either he signs for another 3 years or we trade him now and take the draft picks he is supposedly worth. Thoughts? Well, he is contracted next year.
Yeah.
Did you read much into if you can read lips, you went home after you mummy's boy. That's what we assume he said to Jason Horne-Francis. We know that's what he said to Jason Horne-Francis. And then Jason Horne-Francis flipped it and just sort of sealed the game for Port Adelaide. Do you read anything into that, in that would you say that? Would you utter those words if you were contemplating leaving at the end of this season?
I didn't read as much into that because it was after 1 year, he said, and he's already been here for 2.
Yep.
So he can say, well, I stayed for an extra year. And my mum is in Tongala and she's nowhere near the club I'll end up going to. So I didn't look at it like that. I just looked at it.
Just a bloke having a bit of a...
He's been a smart ass. Yeah. That's what I thought. But I don't think now's the time for them to demand a commitment from Harley.
Wait till the end of the year.
No, even the end of the year. I think you got him for 3 years. Unless he comes to you and says, I want out, and even then I'd be saying, well, just stay for another year, dude. You might feel differently in the end of next season. We've got you for 3. We want you to stay because this is not going to be a great draft. We keep hearing it's a heavily compromised draft as well. So if let's say they gave him to Essendon for 2 first-round picks, and Essendon end up with picks 5 and 6 at the moment because they've got Melbourne's pick as well. So if they had 5 and 6 and they gave that to West Coast, that could push out to 11 and 12 with the academy selections.
Well, it will.
Yeah. So I'd be keeping Harley no matter what this year, not putting any pressure on him to sign. I'd be saying, no, defer every conversation and say, we just need to do whatever it takes to keep him.
Will his currency be as good?
I think it would still be
because he's
good.
in his 3rd year, because second year is a bit of a shocker.
And the draft will probably be better, and you can spread your picks out. So if you miss on one draft, it's not as important. I think, it's important for them to keep Harley Reid next year, regardless of whether he wants to go home the year after or not.
Well, he's contracted, so they can keep him next year.
Yeah, exactly. And then you might be able to convince him if the team improves next year, or if he has a different mindset towards things, or if life off the field changes. You don't know what can happen in 12 months. So when you've got a superstar, do your best to keep them at your club for as long as possible and not get frustrated about not knowing. Live in the moment. You got him for 3 years. Worry about 2027 at the end of 2026.
Hi guys, love the show. Got a scenario I'd like to hear your opinions on. Has the opening round debacle opened the AFL up to another Ross Lyon type pre-finals resting of players incident with the Gold Coast Suns? Imagine the Suns have secured their finals berth and can't go up or down from their ladder position with a win or a loss in their final home and away game. And considering they won't get the full 2 weeks off like the rest of the finalists, especially if they get a Thursday or Friday night final, could or should they rest a few of their players in that final game? Interesting scenario that more likely won't happen, but it is a chance. What do you think? It's a chance. I don't care. I'm moving the pre-finals bye to the pre-grand final.
It's a good question, though, because, it could be an issue. I don't think it will be an issue.
But why should you not be allowed to rest players if you are assured of your ladder position?
Collingwood rested them over the weekend.
As long as you know, as long as your supporters know in advance, because it's not all about betting, but there are, you've got to be transparent. So I think that as long as you know, that's okay with me.
And this is a unique scenario, as the question says, because they're going to play on a Wednesday, we feel. So no other teams are playing. If the ladder can't change at all, then it is a genuine dead rubber.
I find that highly unlikely given how tight it is, by the way. Yeah.
But we've just talked about how Essendon just lost Nick Martin for next year. An ankle injury, days matter. A hamstring injury won't matter. Like, that'll be 3 weeks regardless. But a small tweak here or there, that can be the difference if you're playing when everyone else isn't. So, if they get to that stage, they would be crazy. If their ladder position cannot change, they would be absolutely crazy to go in with their best players.
That was from Gregory Turvey. Thanks, Greg. That's two really good emails. This one from Steve from Inglewood. With Freo missing out on Pickett and Warner, would there be an opportunity to pitch a Godfather offer for Allen? I assume he means Oscar Allen. Allen stays in Perth with family, would be an upgrade on Voss, and as free agent, not cost picks. Freo could offer 2 first-rounders if they matched. No, they don't need Oscar Allen in that profile, that squad profile. I don't think they need Oscar Allen. Other teams need Oscar Allen. I would have thought Brisbane needs Oscar Allen. I would have thought Hawthorn could do with an Oscar Allen. Brisbane's going to get an Oscar Allen. I don't think so. I don't mind. I think Voss has had a good year. I think he fills a really good role at that club. Did a really good job on James Sicily at the weekend, by the way, Patrick Voss. Just in terms, you talk about getting under Harley's skin, he did a pretty good job there too. So I don't think he fits their squad profile. Do you?
He doesn't fit what they need to go and get. What the player that they need is a tall, quick midfielder.
Yep.
Their forward line, they can work around. At the moment, they've got really good small forwards. They've got players who are playing, like Josh Tracy is the number one player in the forward line. He's their beacon of light.
Amos kicked a couple at the weekend, which was good.
And he's only going to get better, and Voss is their role player. So where would Allen come in? He probably jumps over the top of Amos, but he's not going to be healthy the entire time, which is a concern. If I'm Fremantle, I'm keeping my powder dry with any potential free agents, cash that you're putting into your salary cap, or trades to go after guys who can impact in the midfield with speed, power, and height. That's the area that they are lacking in at the moment, and that's what holds them back when they lose.
Yeah, still a good email. Thank you, Steve. You have been listening to the West Sports Show. We have been brought to you by Tab Touch. Got the touch? Download the Tab Touch app today. Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Remember, you can watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube Music. Leave us a rating and a review, and don't forget to follow this podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thanks, Cot.
Thanks, Quarters. Talk next week.